First of all, I want to welcome everyone here tonight and tell you how much that we appreciate the community's involvement in this event. I want to thank Maryville First Baptist Church for graciously hosting this for us. When we made the phone call, there was never a hesitancy. They were ready, willing, and able, and we really appreciate them for that. As you all know, we're facing an overwhelming opiate addiction problem in our county, our state, and across our country. We cannot simply talk about it, identify it, and think it will ever get better without our total commitment by our total community to find ways to eliminate this epidemic. Tonight is what we hope will be the beginning of a journey by Blount County to gain the upper hand on the drug problem we're facing at an increasing rate every day. At this time, I'd like to thank our Blount County elected officials. I'd like to thank the sheriff and all the elected officials for their support. I'd like to also thank our county commission for those that have given us support on this and the help that they have done. I'd also like to thank our state representatives who are here today, and I want you to know how much we appreciate Representative Swan and Representative Ramsey's continued support. And at this time, I'll ask Dr. Ramsey to come and introduce our first guest speaker.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's so nice to see all of you here tonight. I bring greetings from the Governor of the State of Tennessee and the General Assembly, and it's falls to me that we have this great honor of introducing Dr. Monty Burke. Dr. Monty, if you want to come on up here. I'd just like to be in the flow of this man. Now, when Dr. Burke started this resume, he was this tall. He was 9 feet tall, and I want to tell you where the other 3 feet went. He has worked himself to death. This is one of the most astounding resumes I've ever seen. Dr. Monty Burke is a peer recovery service specialist. He has a PhD. He serves the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services as the Director of Faith-Based Initiatives. We're liking that already. We're in a perfect venue. In this role, his goal is to engage Tennessee's faith community in open dialogue around addiction issues, and also to help them build their capacity to combat addiction on their terms. Monty brings more than 16 years of experience working in the criminal justice system in various roles, including adjunct instructor at Montville State Community College, that's in Smyrna, Tennessee, and the Tennessee State University program, which is called a 2+2 criminal justice program, in which he is the coordinator. He is also the State of Tennessee Lifeline Project Coordinator for Region 5 North. That allows him to be aimed at reducing stigma associated with people who suffer from addiction, which is a great part of the process. Dr. Burks has earned his doctorate in theology from Heritage Bible College in 2016 and his master's degree in criminal justice from Middle Tennessee State University in 2011. He currently oversees Tennessee's Lifeline Project and still serves as an adjunct professor at Montville State Community College and Tennessee State University. He has also served as a job placement specialist, program coordinator, public relations specialist, and cognitive skills instructor with Middle Tennessee Rural Reentry Jail and Prison Program. He earned national recognition for helping ex-offenders break down employment barriers. He is also a certified peer recovery specialist, certified MRT facilitator, certified anger management facilitator. You need to stay around for us a little while on that. And a volunteer literacy tutor of America. Now, if you're not tired after hearing that list of accomplishments, let me tell you I am. So it's a great honor for me and a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Monty Burke and hear what he has to say on what we can do to help this terrible situation that exists nationwide. I might to say that for the first time, about 2 years ago, for the first time, the opioid substances replaced alcohol as the largest and most numerous chemical to be addicted in the state of Tennessee. So that's where we are. We're at the top of the mountain. We need to find a way to go down. So Dr. Burks, I appreciate you so much. Congratulations on all this.
So really quick, I'm actually tired from what he said because I didn't realize I did all that. So first I want to say thank you for allowing us to come out to talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. This is a magnificent sanctuary. I grew up in the church, and I traveled a lot on my job. This is the 75th meeting in the 71 counties where we've connected with the faith community to have open dialogue to talk about addiction and mental health issues. Guys, there's power in the pews of our sanctuaries. And if this community does not step up to stop the problems that we have, who is? If you don't step up, who is? It only takes one person to institute a little bit of change, and we all know what a little bit of change can do. I want to tell you a little bit about me before I go into my PowerPoint slides, and I want to say thank you again to the pastor and to his team for putting all the pieces together. I know it wasn't easy, but I grew up in Franklin County, Winchester, Tennessee. That's where Philip Homer is from. He was the last language coach we had around these parts. I'm very glad to know that he's involved in the new process of whatever's going on in the volunteer land. But I grew up in a very structured religious household. My father he practiced Catholicism. He was a practicing Catholic, and my mother was Pentecostal. People, and I saw y'all. People ask me, how did you make it? How did you make it, brother? Tell about it. Well, it actually was a really good upbringing. I really grew up in a structured household. I went to Middle Tennessee State University in the early 90s. And I'll tell you what happened to me. Like what happens to so many other people. When I left my home, I moved from a small town to a big city. Murfreesboro to me was a big city because where I'm from, McDonald's was a Sunday restaurant when I was a young man. Don't y'all laugh at me. I like McDonald's, thank you. But I wasn't used to the large groups of people and all of the outside influences coming in. I'd grown up in an area where everybody knew everybody. You could get a woman on the end of the street by a lady you didn't know because she knew your grandmother, and that's just what it was. But when I went to MTSU, I was introduced to a different type of lifestyle. Club drugs, ecstasy, ketamine. Me being from a small town, I wasn't really equipped with the outside knowledge to understand the dangers of using those types of drugs. And lo and behold, somebody introduced me to a club. So I started clubbing. We didn't have clubs in Winchester, we had tractors. So they kind of diametrically opposed that. But I started using. And my using spiraled out of control till it almost killed me. And how I found out that I had a problem, I knew I had a problem, but it was a problem that I didn't want to admit. I ran into a lady who knew my mother from a district choir. Now, district choir in the Pentecostal faith, they did that a long time ago. They don't do it as much now, but they travel around the state and put these groups of choir together. And my mother was a music minister, so I had to sing an A and B selection, and I can't sing quite often, so people remember me. So a lady saw me, she said, hey, I need to talk to you, young man. I see something going on with you and you need some help. Now, me being a southern man, I thought that I was never supposed to express my emotions. So the fact that I was hurting was something that I would have never told anybody unless somebody brought it out of me. Being from the South, I was always told by my father who was military that everything is a nail and you're a hammer. You have a tool belt, that's how you fix it. The problem with that is I was dying inside. I was taking enough ecstasy to kill a horse every day. Me being from a rural town, I thought, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I should hide everything. I shouldn't tell everybody. So I learned to wear those wonderful masks. But I had a lady who knew me, and she's one of the two ladies that sit on the front two pews of the congregations. Now, you guys know that no matter pastors, this is much respect to you, but there's only two people more powerful than a pastor in the congregation. That's the two church mothers that sit right there. They're the ones that can get stuff done. Well, this just happened to be one of those ladies, and she told me about a meeting. And I said, well, what do you mean a meeting? She said, well, I want you to go to a 12-step meeting. I said, well, I ain't going to no meeting. I don't need that. You need to something different. I ain't got my tools that will fix everything. And y'all know how those good old first ladies and mothers are in the church. They're really persistent. So after I told her I wasn't going to the meeting 3 times, I went to the meeting with her. And I walked into a meeting and I saw people who looked just like me and people who looked just like you. I saw overalls and saggy breeches, judges and police officers talking about their struggles. And then I realized that I wasn't alone. Now, it wasn't just a meeting that got me where I'm at today, but it was the fact that I found out that I was not by myself trying to find my recovery. See, we didn't call it recovery then. It was more aimed toward rehabilitation. And a lot of the words we use or the people use to describe me or tell my story were negative narratives. I was called many names. I don't mind. I'm a fairly tough guy. I run pretty fast, so whatever names you call me, I usually outrun them. But today I celebrate 17 years and 8 months free from that bondage. And what that means is that my story is no better or no more unique than anybody else's. Because the truth of the matter is, 3 out of 4 people sitting in the pews right here need help or know somebody that needs help. That means 6 out of 8 people sitting right here know somebody that needs help. I didn't say that 6 out of 8 people in here are addicted to anything or use anything. That's not what I said. If you want to quote me on that, you can, but I didn't say that. But what I'm telling you is that everybody's in recovery from something and everybody needs some type of help. Some people just need more. So how can we as a community come together to link arms, tie knots in communities? Well, what we've done at our department is we've started a faith-based initiative to reach out to our faith community. I'm going to share some data in just a second to talk about how important and how pivotal the faith community's role is in stepping up to combat addiction. Listen, I don't care what you believe or what you don't believe. I know what I believe. And the fruit of my faith means that I'm going to step up and try to help every single person that I can to my last day. And that's why I'm here. So what is building the capacity to become a recovery-friendly congregation? One, we want to know what addiction is. I'm going to go quickly over addiction because my good friend Dr. Stephen Lloyd is going to go deep into what addiction is and how it affects the brain. But addiction is a primary chronic disease of brain reward, motivation, memory, and related circuitry. Addiction affects the brain. It has it impairs cognition. Here are some numbers that I want to share with you. In 2016, there were 1,110 suicides in the state of Tennessee. That's 16.7 per 100,000 people. The number of overdose deaths in Tennessee in 2016, 1,631. That's our people. That's not somebody else. That's our community. There were 432,000 people who needed but didn't receive treatment for alcohol use, illicit drug use, etc. But that's our people. But let me correlate those numbers to some other numbers. In Tennessee, we have close to 12,000 religious institutions from Memphis to Mountain City. 95 counties, we have almost 12,000. That crosses all denominations and belief systems, but I don't know about y'all, that's a whole lot of numbers right there. You think about it, there's not a lot of things in every county. But we have a congregation in every county. We have a place of worship in every county. The places of worship, in my opinion, and in the opinion of so many more people, especially my recovery community here, those places of worship can be that venue, that avenue, that network, that open door to help people find that sobriety. Sobriety, sometimes we look at people and say, I don't want them around me because I'm afraid of them, and I understand that. The narrative around people who suffer from addiction has been controlled by not the right people. I'm here as a shiny apple to tell you that this is what recovery looks like. This is the product of the people in the pews of a sanctuary giving me a chance and walking with me on that journey. I refuse to be a statistic because I know people who imprinted in me and helped me understand how faith worked. Now let me say this, it took me going to a secular meeting to find my faith. I had to go to a secular meeting to come back to find my faith, to be the person that I am today. I literally almost died by my own hand. My drug use and my lifestyle almost took my life. But we have and this number actually is the most recent number I can pull. 6,651,000 Tennesseans. You can thank Nashville for the increase every time we have a new country singer move to Tennessee. Everybody moves to Nashville from everywhere, especially Kentucky. Where's my Kentucky fans? I don't got Kentucky folks. But 3.5 million people in the state are people of faith. That's over half of our state's population. Over half of the state's adult population are people of faith. Now, I don't know about y'all, but 50% of Tennessee doesn't really agree on anything, except they share a common principle. And the common principle is faith. So imagine a statewide network of faith communities that rely on each other for recovery support. This is what that means. I've been across the state with Pat Turner on my feet, using my hands and feet to figure out how to introduce our faith community to our treatment programs, to our treatment court, to our recovery programs, to our prevention coalitions. Our faith communities do their thing, but imagine with more resources how much of that thing they could do. Again, I'm not asking or questioning anything anybody believes. That's not my purpose. What my purpose is to give you more resources to do the wonderful work that you already do. You can combat addiction on your own terms. You have a captive audience in your congregation multiple days during the week. I grew up Pentecostal. I was in church 7.5 days a week. However that looks to somebody. So I know that every time I was there was an opportunity for me to get information that could have promoted sobriety. So here's why those numbers earlier count. There are over 3,173 people of faith for one person who committed suicide in Tennessee last year. It took one lady to get me to go to a meeting. One. Over 3,000 of you per one person who needed help. More numbers. Over 2,000 people of faith for one person who died. More numbers. It took one lady, one woman, one church mother who friended me and hugged me and didn't care about how different I looked at that particular juncture in my life. Because I didn't look like I look right now. I didn't smell, I didn't sound, all different. Over 2,000 for one person. Now here's the number that's going to hit you home. Over 8 people for one person that needs but not receives treatment for alcohol abuse, drug use, or abuse dependence. 8.2 of you for one person. Now, 8.2 is 2 other arms that can reach out and get somebody to go. That's what honestly believe. You think about that. This information is just a highlight to show you how much power we have in the pews of our sanctuaries. If we step up. I'm not saying nobody here is stepping up. I may be speaking to the choir right now. But emphatically, we have to reach out to other faith communities and other faith communities. Every congregation doesn't need to have a meeting. But every congregation, every faith institution, every religious group, every non-religious group needs to know about another meeting and another meeting. You don't have to have a meeting to tell somebody else about another. Because sometimes all it takes is for someone to realize they're not alone, for them to find their recovery, or to find their path. So what can you do? What we're looking for at our department to link other institutions up together is we've developed a best practice model to become a recovery-friendly congregation. And what that means is we're sending out information and signing up churches to work together, churches and institutions to work together as one body to combat addiction. How does that look? Well, we have over 300 congregations signed up to work together. That means 300 clergy, but I work with hundreds of other pastors. What does that mean? Pastors call me on a regular basis and say, hey, I got a person in my congregation that needs to get into treatment. I say, hold on a minute. I don't hang the phone up. I say, hold on, and I get somebody else on another phone that can get that person into a treatment program or recovery program. I don't know about y'all, but if anybody here's got experience with people when they're ready, you don't have 3, 4, 5 days. Let me call you back in It says that you have 24 hours before they go back to the old playground and playmates. Let me get something clear with you. You got about 2 hours. I'm going to be plain and simple. I'm in recovery. I'm going to tell you something. If you don't fellowship with somebody who hurt somebody else with, they just left the playground and playmates by their own choice. But see, we're notorious in our society. Tell us someone to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, right? But we all know that there are certain situations that you can't pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Not yet. See, we're talking to a group of people that have impaired functions. So what that means is we're going to somebody and say, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and they don't even have on boots. But we give them the boots. I didn't say give them money. I said give them time. That's it. Fellowship with people with the right information is directed to the right program. One, spiritual and pastoral support is key. Imagine if all congregations, all 12,000, right here talk about meetings all during the week. I grew up, my uncle was my pastor, I'm still working with him. He was wonderful, I love him, he was imprinted in my life. But during my journey, when he would speak, especially when I was using, every time he read the Revelations, I thought he was talking directly to me. I was squirming in the seat. They didn't have text messages back then, so I figured my mother had called and told him something that she thought I was doing. But the power that he had, he didn't know it because I didn't tell him, because there was not a relationship built to talk about that at the time. Well, we're past that point as Tennesseans. We're way beyond that. We're in the middle of an opioid pandemic. We have people that are hurting in all communities. Addiction does not care how much money you have, where you go to church, what kind of car you drive, and what bridge club you play in. It doesn't care. It's invaded and infiltrated all communities. Two, view addiction as a treatable disease by its definition. Again, I'm not trying to challenge anybody's belief system, but we have to stop looking at people and saying you're a moral failure. Let me tell you something. When a person suffers from cancer, you bake them a casserole. When a person says they suffer from addiction, you kick them out of the house. I'm not saying that people don't burn bridges. I'm simply saying that we have to treat addiction like a disease and get it treated and help people find that sobriety. I don't think the moral failing thing is quite working with that. If it had, we wouldn't be simply talking about this right now. Number three, embrace and support people in recovery and along and on their journey. Fellowship with people who look different than you. I don't know about y'all, but I went to a meeting at a congregation, at a denomination that I'd never been to. It was the best thing I've ever been to. I met some people who were just a little bit different. We all looked a little bit different, but we looked the same, but we had the same problems. But I needed them to get where I could be comfortable enough, or sane enough, or sober enough, so I could be a seed for somebody else. Each one of you that walks in recovery is a seed for I don't know how many other people. That's up to you. Number four, disseminate recovery information. Our department can provide 5 postal refer individuals to recovery support meetings. There are a lot of recovery support meetings in this area, in the surrounding counties. Everybody here should know about all of them. They're a start. The recovery community needs to be stronger. If you have a congregation and you have space, you can provide recovery support. Recovery support is not just a 12-step meeting. It's not just a 12-step meeting. Somebody answering the phone and says, hey, somebody in my congregation needs help. You know what? I got a list of people to call right here to get that person help. Somebody in my congregation just left a treatment or recovery program. We've got some solutions for that person. When I first got clean, I hadn't really eaten right in probably a year, maybe 2. I'm going to round hard that one, maybe 2 years. So when I first started eating, I gained a lot of weight because I didn't realize just how unhealthy I made myself. I need some people to love me. I do take full responsibility for everything that I've done. I believe in individual accountability, I do. But I also am thankful for those that respected me taking responsibility and helped me pull myself up. Number 6, become a recovery-friendly congregation. If you'd like to become a recovery-friendly congregation, please connect with myself or my friend Jason Goodman. Jason with Project Lifeline. There are 10 Project Lifeline representatives across the state. What their job is to go out in the community and provide presentations about addiction and about stigma. Stigma is what we're dealing with right now. That's why we're not getting the help we need. And it works so many different ways. And one of the worst ways that it works is that people are scared to help other people because they're scared of how their friends are going to judge them. We've got to move past that. We have to move past that as a community. And here are just four popular types of step meetings. I'm a very big fan of Celebrate Recovery. We have some representatives from Celebrate Recovery here. Where's Mr. North at? Where's Al? Al right here. How many Celebrate Recovery people do we have here? Okay, wow. Good for y'all. Also, NAAA and Double Troubles, co-occurring substance abuse and mental health meeting. We can get you a toolkit to start that meeting. And here's just some real quick, before I close, I do sound like a pastor when I say before I close, right? That's like pastor right there. But there are other types of recovery support ventures. Job placement, wellness coaching. My favorite one is hugs. Love people that are different than you. Love people while they're down. There's a whole lot of power in hugs. Just giving somebody a little bit of love. Child care, education, transportation. We have people that need to get to a meeting. And it's easy for somebody on the outside to say, hey, you need to go to 5 meetings a week. I don't have a car. I don't have a license. I'd like to go to a meeting. One of the counties that we work in, we have 11 churches that run the Faith-Based Recovery Coalition. And what they do is they use the church vans to get people to the meetings during the week. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just telling you what they did. That is a template they're using from county to county. The churches that have meetings and it actually crosses religious lines as well. They're working with some different religions to get people to recovery meetings. Listen, guys, the more people that are clean and sober, the better it is for every single person that lives in this area. That's one less person, that lifestyle, another person has an opportunity to be in this lifestyle. So, before I close, I want to say thank you again for allowing me to come and speak about what it means to build your capacity to become recovery friendly. Most of you here are already recovery friendly. I hope I added something to that recovery friendly mission. If I can. And what I would hope is that each one of you reach out to me, reach out to my department, reach out to our representatives when you need some help or you'd like to link with other groups. We have a meeting tomorrow night in Jefferson County. We're soon to meet in Hancock County. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to every single county in Tennessee and pull people like you together until we get in front of this thing. We have to get in front of this thing. Guys, if you don't step up, who is? This is not one of those things where we say, I'm going to let the next group take care of it. Because if that was going to happen, I think it already would have. Division in our communities only serves the purpose of the divider. Whatever that divider may be. So we have to look beyond denominational differences to pull ourselves together and give an ecumenical hug, ecumenical fellowship to people who suffer. If it was not for people who loved and believed in me, who didn't even really know me, I wouldn't be Dr. Burks. I'd probably be, rest in peace, Monty Burks. Thank you. Dr. Lloyd has some wonderful things to cover. I appreciate you guys coming out.
Got about a number one pond on here. So excuse me if I fumble around here a little bit. Dr. Stephen Lloyd is currently the Medical Director for the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. In that current position, Dr. Lloyd educates stakeholders, elected officials, and general public on disease and addiction. He provides consultations to treatment facilities around the state in all areas of treatment, including medicated assisted treatment. Prior to his tenure at the state of Tennessee, Dr. Lloyd served as Chief Medicine and Associate Professor of Medicine in Mountain Home, Virginia Medical Center at East Tennessee State University in Johnson City, Tennessee. Dr. Lloyd received his doctorate of medicine from Quillen College of Medicine at East Tennessee State University in 1999 and completed his residency in internal medicine at East Tennessee State University in 2001, serving as chief resident in his final year. He has worked as an expert witness for the FBI, the TBI, the DEA, the Commonwealth Attorneys in Virginia and Kentucky, the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners, and IRS drug cases involving doctors running pill mills. His interest is in drug-dependent pregnant patients. Dr. Lloyd.
Thank you. You did great. You made me sound way better than I am. I appreciate it. It's always nice. Good evening. I am the worst dressed of the two of us. As you can see, I didn't know Monty was going to break out a three-piece suit on me, or I would have probably chosen different footwear at least. But really, this is who I am, guys. My name is Stephen Lloyd, and I'm a drug addict. Maybe don't look like, well, maybe I do look like one, but probably don't look like what you'd expect to find in somebody with a substance abuse problem, but I promise you that I am. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and do something a little bit different tonight. And I'd ask you to you know, kind of throw away what other people will think about this. If you yourself or a loved one in your family or somebody that's a family friend have had an issue with substance abuse, would you raise your hand? Guys, look around the room. That's 80% of the people in here. This is the biggest problem that we face in the United States today, and we don't talk about it. It's the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. Thank you all for doing that. Do I look like a guy that would knock you in the head and take your purse or your wallet? Hopefully I don't. Hopefully I don't. But I can tell you that 15 years ago, if I came into your house and you had prescription pills in your cabinet, and guys, I'm a practicing doctor 15 years ago. I'm losing my hair, a little thicker around the midsection than I want to be. Right, so I'm not fresh out of school. 15 years ago, I was a practicing doctor. So I came in your house 15 years ago and you had pills in your medicine cabinet. Okay, oxycodone, hydrocodone, doesn't matter what it is, I left with it. I promise you that. I left with it. I stole from my parents, I stole from my friends, I stole from my family, I stole from patients. Okay? And I had no clue what was wrong with me. I thought that I was an immoral piece of crap and I would just die. I mean, that's pretty much what I thought. And luckily, because of my profession, I got some help. But I want to tell you just a couple of quick stories before I get to that. I started off using half of a 5 milligram Lortab a day, all right? A Norco. And it was in the glove compartment of my truck. I don't know if we're getting dentists here. I don't mean to rain on dentists, but dentists are one of the suppliers. There's a lot of suppliers out there. But I'd had a dental procedure months before, taking the samples of Norco, I threw them in the glove compartment of my truck and went about my life. I was in medical residency then. And one day going home from residency, I was in my chief resident year, getting ready to come out and start practicing on my own. I was nervous. I had 2 young kids. You know, residency's pretty insulated, although the work hours were awful. It is pretty insulated. And so I had a lot of things going on in my mind. I thought I had a lot of problems. Anxiety, depression, trouble sleeping, all those things. And I was I grew up in East Tennessee, by the way. I'm an East Tennessee boy. Jonesboro, Tennessee is my hometown in the Tri-Cities. Guys, Tennessee does not stop at Knoxville. You go an hour and a half east of here, and we're still in Tennessee, believe it or not, all right? So I grew up in Jonesboro, so I'm going to med school and residency in basically my hometown, but I was on my way home from work, and I pulled up to a red light in front of Colonel Steve's liquor store in Johnson City, right on Market Street. And for some reason, I opened the glove compartment of my truck, and there was those Norcos. Because I never had a problem with this. I'm in my early 30s. And so I said, you know, my patients take these things all the time. You know, and so I popped one of them open out of a little sample container, broke it in half. 2.5 milligrams of hydrocodone. 2.5 milligrams. And by the time I got to my home, I lived in Boone's Creek at the time. By the time I got home, about a 10-minute drive, I felt like I'd found a cure for my anxiety and my depression. All right. Now, the first time I told this story, there was a psychiatrist sitting over here where Representative Ramsey is. And he says, opioids are not a treatment for anxiety and depression. And I keep waiting for that son of a gun to show back up, because then I was new doing these talks. Guys, opioids I didn't mean that they were a treatment for anxiety and depression. First of all, smart aleck. I meant that it made me feel like my problems had gone away. People who've used opioids will tell you that. All right, that's kind of the cares of the world. You know, the midnight drinker who drinks every day after work, same thing, guys. It's the same dadgum thing. So he said, opioids are not a treatment for anxiety and depression. And I kind of shied away from it and kind of, backpedaled a little bit. But I keep always secretly hoping he shows back up, because I'm way more educated now. Opioids have been used for anxiety and depression since the time of Hippocrates. Forever, right? And they actually work. I get people tell me all the time, well, it doesn't work. Yes, it does. I promise you it does. The problem is the things that are associated. And that's what I ran into. So within 3 years, now guys, I graduated residency, stepped into a practice. I'm a professor at my medical school. Matter of fact, one of my students is here tonight. I didn't know he was going to be here, but I have one of my former students here. He came along a little after I had this problem. But I'm a practicing professor in my medical school. I had everything I ever wanted. Right, I grew up in Jonesboro. I never imagined in my life being a doctor. I used to tell people I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid, and they laughed at me. Nobody in my family ever went to college. I drove a car that I never would imagine that I'd be able to afford. I live in a house in a neighborhood that I never could have, in my wildest dreams, could have imagined where I live. Yet, at the same time, I've got this problem, right? So in that 3 years, a little over 3 years, I went from using half of a 5 milligram Lortab, 2.5 milligrams of hydrocodone, to 500 milligrams of OxyContin every day. Okay, so how much is 500 milligrams of OxyContin? If you put that in Vicodin terms or Lortab terms, that's 100 pills a day. Not 100 milligrams, 100 pills. So you go have knee surgery, your orthopedic surgeon gives you 90 oxycodone, which is way too many, but he gives you that many, right? And then you go put them in your medicine cabinet, and then a kid comes along and does the same thing I do, right? So that's what happens. But at any rate, gives you 90 oxycodone for your knee surgery. I couldn't last 1 day on that. 1 day. So when I graduated medical school in 1999, my classmates gave me something called the Gold Humanism in Medicine Award. It's the first year that we'd had it at our school. And it went to the graduating doc who, by his peers' judgment, delivered the most kind, compassionate, and non-judgmental care. And my classmates gave that to me. It's still the proudest thing that I have, and it's the only thing hanging in my office in Nashville, other than pictures of my family. Because I am proud of that, because I believe that is me. And that's what I was. Within those 3.5 years, I went from being that to a guy who would steal medicine out of your medicine cabinet. And we went to the beach right before I got help. We went to Orange Beach, Alabama, which is where we still go on the Gulf Coast. And I need 700 pills, guys, to get through the week. 700. And that was hard even for me. So I got my hands on 700 pills. We took off to the beach. And like any good person with addiction, those of you who've suffered from this in your life know what I'm getting ready to say. I got 700 of them. So I'm going to take more today. I won't take as many tomorrow, right? Because tomorrow is not going to get here. And then it shows up, and then I ran out on Thursday. So from Sunday morning to Thursday afternoon, I took 700 pills. And so I'm out. Now I'm going to be at the beach for another 3 days. So I know I'm getting ready to be dope sick. I mean, I've been dope sick 100 times. So I know I'm getting ready to get dope sick. So I said, man, I'm in South Alabama. Surely to God, I can find a pill mill. Right, all I got to do is drive around to some primary care offices, look for a bunch of cars in the parking lot with out-of-state plates, a hood up, a couple of people asleep in the back seat, outside smoking, and a bunch of energy drinks laying on the ground. I found one. Right, I know what they look like. I can tell you, I don't need the TBI. I can spot that. So I drove around, and I swear to you, every single place I went to looked legitimate. I was like, damn. So I drove back to our condo, and I'm right on the main drag there in Orange Beach. And there's a Rite Aid pharmacy on the corner, so I wheeled my car in there, and literally, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the beach is right there. If it weren't for the high rises, you can see your kids right there on the beach. My kids were playing. Heath was 6, and Heath was 9, Haley was 6. And so I pulled into that pharmacy parking lot, and I thought, okay, I'm a doc, I got a DEA number. I could write myself a script, right? Except the DA tracks that, and I'll get caught, and that'll be a problem, so I'm not going to do that. So I got the idea to rob the pharmacy. Now, I've already told you I'm an East Tennessee boy. I got a bunch of guns. I love guns. I got them everywhere. I never shot anything, but I got a bunch of guns. And I had a gun in the car, actually. And so I sit there and I contemplated robbing that pharmacy. Now, luckily for me, we talk about this. Those folks in 12-step parlance will know what I'm talking about. I had a moment of clarity, a brief moment of clarity, thank God. Because I shouldn't have. My frontal lobe was gone. I'm going to explain that to you here in just a second. I had a brief moment of clarity that told me if I robbed that pharmacy, I couldn't recover from that. I couldn't recover from that. Plus, I'm not a very good criminal. I was in a white T-shirt that had an orange Power T on it and a pair of bathing trunks down to about right here, and I was in South Alabama. I mean, I really got caught before I got to the door. And so I decided I'm going to be dope sick for the next 3 days, and that's what I did. I made everybody around me miserable. Karen had to drive all the way back to Johnson City with me over the corner, everybody thinking I'm sick. I was sick. I was dope sick. A buddy of mine dropped pills off at my house. 10 minutes after I get home, I'm miraculously cured. How did I go from a guy in 1999 whose classmates thought this about him to a guy 3.5 years later that's contemplating robbing a pharmacy? How did that happen? And guys, that's where my life changed and my career changed. I'm an internal medicine doc by trade. I work in the hospital taking care of people in the ICU, but I don't do that anymore. I work in the middle of Nashville in a tall building, and I never in my life dreamed I'd work in a metropolitan city downtown, and I'm the only non-shrink in the whole building. All right, I'm an internist. But this is my love and this is my passion. So I want to introduce that to you and just look around here tonight. How many people have been touched with this? Yet we will sit, and this drives me crazy. I go to First Christian Church in Johnson City, Nobody in my Sunday school class is worried about where their next meal is coming from. I promise you that. Nobody's hurting. Yet we will sit in our Sunday school class and we will pray that somebody sells a piece of property. I promise we do. And that same person's got a kid struggling with substance abuse and nobody says a dadgum word about it. Drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. Me and my wife's grabbing my leg and punching me and all this stuff. I'm like, look, why don't we get rid of the Ark of the Covenant talk that we're getting ready to do? Not the Ark of the Covenant's not a bad thing, right? Why don't we reach out to our friend here who's helping and let her and her husband know they're not alone and see if we can't help them? We don't do that. And we don't do it because of what Monty's already talked about, which is the stigma associated with addictive disease. So hopefully over the next 35, 40 minutes, I'll be able to help you guys understand a little bit more about addiction. This is my bio. You did a great job with it. I don't receive commercial support. I'm sorry, guys. It's part of it. I don't receive commercial support anybody other than the state of Tennessee who pays me. I'm not paid to be here tonight. He's already told you about some of my work. You all have had a huge pill mill problem here in Blount County, and I worked a couple of those cases. I've taken 21 cases. We're 20-0 right now. I got another one that's coming up in December, and on the way up here, I got a call about taking on a new one. So they don't stop. And guys, I've never been in a courtroom a day in my life, never. And now when I go in the courtroom, I'm on the stand for 9 or 10 hours at least every single time. But some folks are just criminals. Some folks are profiting. And it's costing people their lives. 1,631 Tennesseans died in 2016 from drug overdose. 1,631. That's over 4.5 a day. And for people to profit from that's criminal. They need to go to jail. I'm sorry. I've been a member of the Greene County Drug Court for about 6 years. And those of you who know anything, maybe not even know what drug court is, it's basically you get your sentence, but you go into an alternative program. It's much harder than staying in jail. I promise you that. People who graduate from drug recovery courts, 75% of them never get rearrested. 75% never get rearrested. I was talking to a gentleman out in the parking lot earlier. He was talking about how full your jails are. Your jails are full of people who are addicted, guys. Okay, that's who they're full of. You treat those people and you get 75% of them that never come back, you can open up a Starbucks in your jail rather than put prisoners in there. I promise you that. I'm a founding partner of High Point Clinics, a clinic in Johnson City. I love to treat drug-dependent pregnant women. It's the most fun I've ever had in medicine. I promise you that. So we got to stop throwing rocks at these women. We got to stop making things hard on them to get treatment. And those of you who don't believe me, come work with me for one day. You come work with me for one day. You meet some of my women. I should not say it like that. I've said that numerous times. Come and meet some of my patients. Okay? You won't feel the same way about them, I promise you. And I'll tell you a story about them when I get to here in a second. I am a Tennessee Vol fan to the bone. It's killing me right now. The prospect of losing to Vanderbilt again is more than I can take. And I'm afraid it's going to happen, actually. My son, Heath, was born in 1994. We're in Maryville. Surely you all know who the quarterback of Tennessee was in 94. Heath Schuler. That's right, 94. Yeah, that's right. So I named my son, of course, Heath. My daughter, Haley, was born in 1997. Anybody know the quarterback of Tennessee? And I said, this is easy. Peyton Manning. So I wanted to name Haley Peyton, and Karen said that would make this trailer trash, and she wouldn't let me do it. So that's, there's my daughter Haley, and I've been married to Karen for 27 years. This is my hometown. This is Johnson City. We had a drug treatment facility that wanted to come to Gray, Tennessee. It's actually there now, and it's open. It was a cooperation between East Tennessee State University and Mountain States Health Alliance, which is our biggest healthcare provider. And it was going to be a comprehensive center to address addiction all the way from prevention to treatment, and even using Narcan to turn people around even after they die. And one of the things they were going to utilize was methadone. And guys, I'm going to tell you this, methadone saves lives. It does. It just does. And you feel the way you want to about it, but I'm going to explain that to you here in a second. I'm not asking you to accept it. I'm just telling you that it saves lives. And used the right way, it is a tremendous tool to help people. We want everybody to live abstinence-based, just like I get to live. All right, but some people need help for a longer period of time, and medication absolutely helps them. And that was just one little small part of what this clinic was going to be, and they're going to put it in this neighborhood out in Gray, Tennessee, which is just north of Boones Creek. Okay, so they show up at the city commission meeting and city council meeting where they're going to talk about zoning, and these are the folks who showed up. And I know people in this slide. And I took this off the front page of the paper. I didn't sneak and take this or anything like that. And these aren't bad people. These are actually really, really good people. They're people who are scared and don't understand. So one guy down here in the corner says, not among our schools. I got bad news for you. Okay, it's already in your school. Okay, I go to city commission meetings all the time, and I go into places to advocate for drug treatment centers, and I get a city commissioner say, Dr. Lloyd, I was in Bristol. He said, Dr. Lloyd, we're concerned about bringing some of these people into Bristol, Tennessee. And I said, I just came in the main street and walked up your steps into this building, and I passed 3 or 4. They're already here. Because these folks are in our communities. Look at who all you all know. They already live here. We're not bringing people in from anywhere. We're trying to bring them out of the shadows. You can have the best treatment in the world, but if people don't step out and ask for help, it don't matter. I promise you. And I compare it to the HIV and AIDS epidemic of the 1980s. And we got a bunch of people in here who got gray hair and thinning hair. So I know you're around in the 80s. You remember that? Right? When you found out somebody had AIDS or somebody was known to have AIDS, what was the first question people asked? Come on, it's easy. How'd they get it? Right? There was always why was that the question asked? Because if it was a homosexual male or an intravenous drug user, they kind of brought it on themselves. And I'm not either one of those things, so I'm not really at risk. Really, that's the truth. I mean, I remember it very well. And then some things started to happen. A group called ACT UP started marching on Washington and said, you got to fast track our drugs. You know, you got to stop letting us die. You had Ryan White, the young man who got HIV disease from a blood transfusion for his hemophilia. And you can never underestimate the impact that Irvin Magic Johnson's announcement in the early 90s that he was HIV positive. Right? And look at how things have changed. When's the last time you read an article on AIDS in the newspaper? Do you remember? People have access to treatment. They step out and get help early now, and they live normal lifespans. I saw Magic on the Dodgers made the World Series. Right? And I saw him. He doesn't look like he's missed many meals. Right? He looked good and healthy. Guys, that was 1991, 1992. It was a death sentence then. He's still alive today. Stigma has gone down for HIV disease and AIDS. People step out and ask for help. This is our generation's HIV disease and AIDS case. This is it. I'm convinced of it. So these folks, the thing that bothered me most about this picture, there's 3 little girls over here. See them? Holding signs. Look like they're about 10 years old. Okay? And I know the prevalence of addiction in that area. And so the numbers tell me that one of those 3 little girls will have this problem in her lifetime. My bet is they have no clue what's on their sign. Okay, first of all. And second of all, when they're 16, 17, 18 years old and they realize they're in trouble, how willing do you think they're going to be to step out and ask for help? Because we have to stop passing this along to our kids. Right? We have friends and family members that have died. Mayor Berry, our mayor in Nashville, was at a conference I was at this morning before I came here. She got up and spoke. She lost her son, Max, to a drug overdose on July 29th of this year. College graduate, Max was very bright. His dad's a professor at Vanderbilt. His mom's mayor in Nashville. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're that. I always like the NA thing. Doesn't matter if you're from Yale or jail. Right? Doesn't matter. It knows absolutely no boundaries. This is the kind of thing right here that keeps people sick. The clinic has opened up. It's going to save lives. There have been no problems. People in the community are starting to change the way they feel, which is exactly what I knew would happen. These are good people. Right? They're just people who are scared. But we have to be careful in our mindset that we don't chase people into the shadows, and that's why I travel with Monty everywhere I can to talk about this. All right. So is that the right slide? All right. So we're going to understand addiction. We got first thing we got to do is we got to separate dependence from addiction. Okay. Now the latest psychiatric manual, the DSM-5, Diagnostics and Statistics Manual number 5. I hate it. It got rid of this classification, but I think it still works. Okay. Dependence. Dependence just means that whenever the drug is stopped, a predictable physiologic withdrawal syndrome happens. What does that mean? It's somebody gets dope sick. Okay, that's what that means. Now, guys, that is normal. I can get the Pope, Jesus Christ, it don't matter. I can get anybody who's a Homo sapien dependent in 14 days. All I got to do is give them hydrocodone or oxycodone on a consistent basis for 14 days. And at the end of that 14 days, I abruptly stop the medication. They're going to get dope sick. Right? They're going to go through a predictable physiologic withdrawal syndrome. Does that mean they're an addict? No, it means they're a human being. So some of you all may have had this problem. If you had an orthopedic surgery, you're on medication for a while, and then you ran out of medication for a few days, or you didn't feel as good, right? Had some sweats, maybe some stomach upset, some bony pain, and you got through it. Does that mean you're an addict? No, it means you're dependent. So what is addiction? Addiction is the continued use and, despite adverse consequences. Now, I get this all the time. I get these audit C's and these questionnaires to try to figure out if somebody has addiction. I really don't need that. All I need to know, do they have losses in their life and then continue to use? If they do, they're addicted. And that's just the bottom line. So I had guys that come to me and say, well, I don't really have a problem. Okay, you don't have a problem. You lost your job. Your wife left you. You've got a restraining order and you can't see your kids and you continue to use. Yeah? that person is an addict. They have addictive disease. I try not to use the word addict, but they have substance use disorder. The second DUI, guys, is not an accident. First one may be an accident, right? I mean, you may have had too much wine to drink with dinner, or not enough to eat. Maybe your little woman don't metabolize alcohol as well. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying it can happen. The second DUI is not an accident. Why? Because you had consequences. The first DUI, you spent 48 hours in jail in every state in the United States. It cost you 10 grand for an attorney. Okay, and we publicly shamed you by putting your picture in the busted paper. All right, we did. That's what we do. All right, so there are consequences. Continued use despite consequences, guys, is addiction. Okay, and I don't need a long questionnaire to answer that question. All I need to do is sit down with my patient and find out a little bit about it. I've been in jail 3 times for possession, use, DUI, whatever. Okay, I know what I'm dealing with. Now we can move on because it's a disorder of the brain. Now, the hallmark of addiction is cravings. And guys, I'm getting ready to warn you. I'm getting ready to say sex like 3 or 4 times in church. I think it's okay, but I promise you it's in the right context. All right. So the phenomena of cravings. Everybody in your room knows what cravings are. Cravings for opioids are the same as cravings are for food when you're hungry and water when you're thirsty. And everybody has them. If you didn't eat dinner before you came in here tonight, and right now it's 6:10, and maybe you ate lunch today at 11:30, your belly's starting to turn over, right? You're starting to grumble a little bit. I'm hungry, right? Some of you get hangry, all right? You start to get angry. Your mood starts to change, right? And so you start to have cravings. So if right now I brought in food and I put it back there in that back corridor and I let the smell of it waft in here, your cravings would grow, right? Because now you've been triggered. And what happens is your mind remembers the last time it ate. It remembers that good feeling. It remembers it hadn't felt that way in a while. And now we have something that can satisfy that craving, right? So that's what drives us to eat and keeps our species going forward in time. So if you knew this, somebody's cravings for opioids, who's truly addicted, are 10 times stronger than your cravings are for food when you're hungry and water when you're thirsty. 10 times. I treat drug-dependent pregnant women, and when people find that out, everybody in the world wants to give me advice on how to do it. And they're like, Steve, these women just need to put the drugs down. They've got a baby inside of them. Can't they see that they're hurting the baby? It's very simple. Just put them down. Don't touch them. Well, thank you. I never thought of that. Okay, now that's a smart aleck flippant answer, and I don't give that one anymore, although I want to, because of course I thought of that. But I come back at it this way. I said, that's right, they really should. I'd like for you to stop eating. I mean, really. And it'll actually be 10 times easier for you to stop eating than it will for them to stop using. Does that mean that people can't quit and stay quit? No, they absolutely can. Monty just told you about him. I'm 13 years clean and sober right now, and I don't take anything, but I had quality treatment, great aftercare and follow-up, guys. And that's what it takes. We can't just send somebody to a 28-day treatment program, and I can tell you that's rare for me to get 28 days, and then I expect them to come back and it'll be all over. It's not going to happen, and I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. But you have to understand the phenomena of cravings. Okay, now here's the kicker with cravings. They happen as little as 33 milliseconds. Anybody know how long that is? It's the time it takes you to blink your eye. So a craving comes on in 33 milliseconds. It's the time it takes you to blink your eye, and you're not even conscious that you're blinking your eye. It happens before you're even conscious of it. You can put a crack cocaine addict in a functional MRI scan that can see chemicals in the brain. And you can show him a picture of a crack pipe for 33 one-thousandths of a second, 33 milliseconds. He's not even aware that he saw the picture, yet his brain lights up. Dopamine release everywhere. It's already happened, and he's not even conscious that he saw the picture. And it takes a long time to teach people how to deal with that. The first part of it is teaching them how to avoid those situations in the first place. And some of the folks that we deal with, heck, that's their whole world. You tell them to change their playgrounds and playmates, they're going to need to move to a different country because they grew up in families riddled with substance abuse. They live with their using partner. They live with the person who's been abusing them for the last 20 years. We have to take a realistic look at where we are. We absolutely have to understand the phenomenon of cravings. Now, cravings are why people relapse. Okay, it's not getting dope sick. I've been dope sick 100 times. I got through it 100 times, yet I always wound up back using it. And it was because of cravings. I would quit, I'd be sick, I'd want to die, throw my guts up. I promise you it's not fun, it's not pretty. Those of you who've been dope sick know what I'm talking about. All right? But I'd get through that, and then 3 months later, I'd be back using again, and I wasn't dope sick. What happened? It was the phenomena of cravings that I didn't know. I'd run into a queue in my environment, a place I used to use. I would see a pill bottle in my office, all right? And then boom, that dopamine releases in my brain, and the next thing I know, I'm going to get pills. And that's how it happens. Now, here's the beauty of medication. buprenorphine, naltrexone, and methadone quell cravings. Because everybody doesn't get the same treatment Steve Lloyd got. So when I crashed and burned in 2004, my dad intervened on me. I got 90 days of high-quality inpatient treatment, and that was after 5.5 days of first-class detox at Vanderbilt University. And then 90 days at one of the best treatment facilities in the United States. And at the end of that 90 days, I got 5 years of aftercare and follow-up with close accountability and 12-step meeting support, accountability with random urine drug screens, a worksite monitor, and the advocacy of a group called the Tennessee Medical Foundation. That's what all doctors and airline pilots get. Do you know what their success rate is at 5 years? Anybody want to take a guess? 90%, 9-0. Name me another medical condition that we have a 90% success rate at. You can't. We don't do that well with strep throat. Okay? We don't. We know what works, but in order for that to work for everybody, we wouldn't be able to build any new roads or bridges in the state of Tennessee, even with the gas tax. Okay? We wouldn't, because it's so expensive in order to do that. So medication levels the playing field. It keeps cravings at bay until people's frontal lobes wake up. So that's what I want to get into now. So everybody should recognize this. Everybody has one, hopefully. Some of us use this more than others. This is the human brain. So all we've done, I'm looking that direction. We've taken the outer layers off of me. We're looking straight into the left hemisphere of my brain. Okay, this thing weighs about 3.5 pounds. It has the consistency of congealed snot. Okay, it's like the slime that your kids play with. That's what it feels like in real life. There's 2 areas I want to focus on. Mom, you got that pointer? Get your... What's up there? This thing? No, you said don't touch that. It scrambles everything. No, the laser pointer. Okay. All right, so I'm going to have to point, guys. The area I want to focus on is right here, okay? And I want you to imagine where my 2 fingers meet, because it's actually deep within our brain, but from the outside, it's right here. And that is our ancient limbic system. It's a reward system in our brain. And I want you to think of it as the go system. Okay? So the go system, the limbic system in our brain, has one goal and one goal only, and that's to keep our species going forward in time. That's its only goal. So what does our species have to do to go forward in time? Number 1, we got to live to be reproductive age, and number 2, we got to have sex. Okay? Those are the 2 things. If we do that as a population on a large enough scale for a long enough period of time, our species will continue to go forward in time. All right? So what do we have to do to live to be reproductive age? Okay, we've got to eat and drink. So whatever we have to do to live to be reproductive age had better feel good. If it didn't feel good, none of us would do it. Guys, if eating, every time you ate and you threw your toenails up or got deathly ill, you would stop eating at some point. You would not live to be reproductive age. You would not have sex, and our species would stop going forward in time if that happened to enough people. That's how that works. So here's what happens when you eat. When you eat, a few minutes after you start eating, your brain starts to make its own morphine, its own fentanyl, it makes its own heroin, it makes its own oxycodone, it makes its own hydrocodone. They're called endorphins and enkephalins. And those endorphins and enkephalins are released in the reward center of your brain. They attach to the opioid receptors, and it leads to the downstream release of dopamine. And everybody in this room loves dopamine. That's that chemical that gives us an overall sense of well-being, that things are going to be okay. Right? So when's your dopamine high throughout the year? Anybody got a guess? Thanksgiving afternoon, 2 p.m. Right? You just had all that food. You're sitting on the couch. You can't even stay awake to watch football. Right? That's your dopamine high. Guys, that's how it works. Right? Because when we have that craving for food, whatever made us, right? God made us. God made us for our species to go forward in time, and He built this elaborate system to make sure that we kept eating. Eating has to feel good or we wouldn't keep doing it. Right? And we actually have to teach babies how to eat. Babies are crying like crazy, right? They're upset. They won't latch on to mom. But when they do, they get that positive reinforcement really quick. They calm down. Why do they calm down? They got endorphins and enkephalins released and attached to the opioid receptors in their brain, release the downstream release of dopamine, and the baby calms down. And the same thing happens in mom's brain because she's excited because the baby is upset. And the baby knows the next time that it gets that feeling, all it's got to do is start wailing its brains out, and mom's going to hook it back up to the food machine. That's how it works. Right? And we learn that. Right? Does sex feel good? Yes, it does. If sex didn't feel good, nobody would do it. And if enough people stop doing it, our species would not go forward in time. Guys, this system is built to make sure that we repeat the things that assures that our species lives on. How strong is our desire to live? It's really strong. We take this place off that we're in right now, and we don't let any food or water in here. It won't be long before we make a list of what order we're going to eat each other in. That's how strong our desire to live is, guys. And this is the same system that is hijacked by opioids. 10 times stronger craving for opioids than your drive is to live going forward. And I get people all the time, people ask me, I stole drugs from a dying cancer patient. He was one of my favorite teachers in med school. And he picked me to be his doc when I graduated. He was dying of lung cancer. And I went to his house before his death, and I took his OxyContin out of his medicine cabinet for my own use. But I didn't really steal it because I already was good for, so, but you all know I really stole it, right? And so I think about that. How is that possible? It's possible because I thought I would die without it. Because the system in my brain that was hijacked is the same system that drives me to live. And we see it all the time. You see people that do horrendous things. Not far from here, in a little place called Bean Station. Right, an ex-cop walks in who's withdrawn from opioids, guns down 4 people in the pharmacy, kills 2 of them, shot the other 2 point blank. They miraculously live. And when they showed him the video of it, and he sentences 2 consecutive life terms without chance of parole, he couldn't believe that was him. That's how powerful this is. These are the systems of our brain it attacks. So that's the GO system. Everybody got that? Food, water, sex, all good things. Everybody agree? All right, so the frontal lobe of our brain, where that fissure is up front, everything in front of that, I want you to think of it as our stop system. Okay? It's our stop system. Now, the frontal lobe has 2 big things that it does. These are really important. It gives us insight and judgment. Because if I took away everybody's insight and judgment in this room tonight and sent you out in the world, you're not going to do very well. I promise you, I don't care what your profession is, I don't care if you've got a problem with drugs, alcohol, it don't matter. You're not going to do very well without insight or judgment. So the frontal lobe of our brain gives us insight and judgment. And it works in congruence with that reward system. Okay? So let me explain it to you. We all agree food, water, and sex are good things. Can you think of instances where food, water, and sex may not be a good thing? Can you? I can. Anybody ever tried to lose weight? All right, well, this is an easy example right here. Since the first of the year, I've lost 40 pounds. I've worked out, I've worked my butt off, right? Finally, I turned 50 and I'm having this huge midlife crisis and already have a fast car. And so I wanted to get myself in shape. Actually, I have a sedan now. I sold the fast car. I didn't want to drive it too fast. I was afraid to kill myself. So I kind of lied about that. So I wanted to get in shape. And so I work out at a place in the morning, every morning, 6:15. And in an hour, I burn about 800 to 900 calories an hour. It's an intense workout, okay? And right outside of my gym is a Krispy Kreme donut. Guys, there are a few things I love in the world. UT football, Krispy Kreme donuts. Those are right there. So I pull out, I'm sitting there, and they blow that smell out in the street, right? Because the same thing out here. And so I'm sitting there at a red light. I'm not even hungry for Krispy Kreme. And I look over and I see it, and I'm like, oh, man. And I remember the last time that I had Krispy Kreme donuts. I love the glazed ones. So I had that, and I remember there's an emotional connection. How many people in here have comfort aid? There's a reason that you do that. Right? It's attached to the amygdala in your brain, which is your emotional center. Glad, sad, angry, hurt, shame, fear, guilt, lonely, all those things. So there's an emotional attachment to that. So I'm sitting there in the reward system of my brain. What's the reward system telling me? Go get the Krispy Kreme donuts, pleasure, right? Dopamine release, overall sense of well-being. You love it. That's what it's telling me. But I'm 50 years old and I have a fully functioning frontal lobe, and I just worked my butt off for an hour in the gym. Okay, and each one of those Krispy Kreme donuts are 220 calories. And they have 20 grams of fat, and by the way, that is accurate. Okay? And I'm going to have 4. All right? So that's at least 4, because I'm probably going to order 6 and eat the other 2 later, or right then, and chase it with some whole milk. So there's 1,000 calories. So the frontal lobe of my brain says, Steve, you can go do that, but you just worked your butt off in the gym for an hour, you burned 800 calories, you're going to go eat 1,000, you're actually 200 calories in the hole, and you ain't even got home yet, you ain't even started work. And so the frontal lobe of my, now I can make an informed decision. Guys, that's how we are. So the frontal lobe allows us to play through scenarios and then pick the decision that has the least amount of consequences and the most benefits. That's how we all work. And I'm doing fine. I say, I am not going to get Krispy Kreme donuts. And I get ready to pull out, and somebody flips on the hot donuts now sign. All right, and then I'm talking to the lady and the little thing, and and then it's all bets are off. But guys, that's how it works. That's how it works, and that's the same system that is hijacked by opioids. Now, here's the kicker. How many of you got teenagers? Anybody got teenagers? Y'all pay real close attention right here, because I'm getting ready to teach you why they're stupid. All right? They're not stupid, they make bad decisions. And the reason they make the bad decisions is this. The frontal lobe of your brain and the reward system of your brain are not neurologically connected until we're about 23 years old if we're a woman and about 25 years old if we're a man. That's why every time I go into jails and there are women there, I say, please don't date any dude under 25. You can make this argument probably about all men, but we'll put that off to the side and fight that out later. Because if you're under 25 and you're a man, what are you driven by?
the area under that yellow arc right there, your reward system, it's all about pleasure. There's nothing with insight and judgment. Okay? That's why. That's why you don't buy a kid, 16 years old, a Chevy SS Camaro Super Sport. Right? Those of you who've got teenagers and you remember the first time they took down the driveway driving on their own, and you're sitting there watching them, how'd you sleep that night until they got home? Terrible. You laid there with one eye open, you heard the front door open. It's like all parents do. Why? Because you have a fully functioning frontal lobe, and you've seen kids, newspaper articles, maybe even known kids that have died through the years from reckless driving when they were teenagers. And your kid does not have a fully functioning frontal lobe. They have a reward system and unfortunately puberty. Okay? And so they get in that car, they ram their foot to the floorboard, they don't understand running off the road and killing themselves, they don't understand their own mortality, they don't understand hurting somebody else. And they get the radio pumping, and now you've got endorphins and the kelphins popping everywhere, attaching to opioid receptors, leading to the downstream release of dopamine, and they're invincible. And for the Lord's sake, if they've got somebody of the opposite sex in the passenger seat, all bets are off. Right? That's just the way it is. And keep in mind, when they get to be 23 and 25, the frontal lobe is attached to the reward system, and now we're dealing with a fully functioning human being. My son is 23. 2 more years before I can talk to him. I'm excited about that. All right? It's just the way it is. So you say, Steve, that's all well and good. What does that have to do with drug addiction or substance abuse? Because these same connections between the frontal lobe of our brain and the reward system, those connections are arrested at time of first use. So think about that. And those of you who work in the field, and I know we got a bunch of CR folks in here, and I guarantee us NA and AA folks in here as well. You got somebody whose belly button age is 31, and you're sitting there talking to them in their addiction, and they're making decisions like a 14-year-old. We see it all the time. What are you thinking? What, you know? And our tendency is to keep getting mad. Get madder by the second. I can feel my temper going up. First of all, anger and shame don't work, so stop doing it. If anger and shame work, we'd open up a clinic, we'd bring people in, get mad at them, and shame them. It doesn't work. Putting people in jail doesn't work. We got a little county up from where I am, Carter County, Tennessee. And in my lifetime, I would love to have a nickel for every time I turned on the radio and heard about the new jail expansion at the Carter County Jail. I mean, literally every 5 years. And so now the Carter County Jail expansion is jailing the kids of the ones who are into others. Okay, that's what's happening. These things don't work, so we have to take a different mindset. DOC, or Department of Corrections in the state of Tennessee, I bet that's a huge budget. Huge. How many of those people are repeat offenders? All right? Treatment is a much better option than jail them. And if they're in there long term, treat them while they're in there. All right? And I get people who get mad at that. Well, I had to work for this, that. I get it. I get it. But do you want to keep, it costs, what, $32,000 a year to keep somebody in the state penitentiary? $32,000 a year. We can do a lot of treatment for that. If they don't come back, they're providing for their family, they have jobs, they're supporting our tax base. Guys, this makes sense to do. It absolutely makes sense to do. So I told you about the frontal lobe, the fact that you know, not developed until we're 23 and 25, at belly button age at 31. So they say, I started using when I was 14. Okay, we're dealing with a 14-year-old. All of us know how to do that. We've all dealt with 14-year-olds. How long does it take the frontal lobe of the brain to come back after drug use? Anybody got an idea? Okay. If you don't remember anything else from tonight, I want you to remember this slide. And it's an old slide, 1992. This is a PET scan of brains. And don't get intimidated by PET scan. All a PET scan does is look and see where radio-labeled sugar goes. That's it. That's all it does. And all of the cells in our body work off sugar of some type. Some type. I don't care what cell it is, it works off sugar of some type. So if you had a device that could put a tag on sugar, and so you can see it with an X-ray camera, then you can see what cells were active and growing. Right? This is how we detect cancer, metastatic spread, because they grow really, really fast. Okay, and so it lights up like a Christmas tree. So these brains right here, the top row of brains you see up there, are normal brains. Okay, these are brains of fully functioning people who are not using substances. And the yellow and the red are where the cells are working. And look where they're working. The top part of the picture is your frontal lobe. Remember, insight and judgment. Okay, so that's a fully functioning brain. All areas active. The second row of brains are brains of people that have been detoxed off of drugs for 10 days. Okay, so Monty comes in, he's on heroin, I take him, I detox him for 10 days, and I turn him loose on the street with that. That's his brain. What do you see in the top half of the brain? Uptake-wise, how much red and yellow do you see? None. What's the frontal lobe of the brain responsible for? Insight and judgment. What is active in that brain? The reward system. It never goes down. It never goes down. So you've taken somebody with drug dependence, drug addiction, detoxed them, and sent them back out into the world with half a brain. driven solely by reward system. What do you think the success rate of detoxing somebody is and sending them back to the street? Does anybody know what it is? It's almost zero. Every once in a while you get somebody who's just so sick and tired of being sick and tired that they make it. But most of the time they don't. Most of the time they go back. Now, guess what insurance companies reimburse the most for? Detox. We reimburse the most for the treatment that's least effective. It's the most amazing thing for me because we let insurance determine what our course of treatment is. For the 12-steppers in the room, I'm getting ready to make your day here in a second. Look at that bottom row of brains. 100 days. Starting to see some intake, starting to see some waking up there. That's over 3 months. So if we take somebody and we send them off to a 28-day treatment program, at the end of that 28 days, we expect them to be okay. It's another 2 months before they have any insight and judgment. We better hope that they're going back to a really supportive environment with a lot of aftercare and follow-up. Because if they're not, very few of them are going to make it. It takes 3 months before the frontal lobe finally wakes up. And guys, this is the utility of medication because everybody's not going to get the treatment I got. By the way, why did I get the treatment I got? Because it's expensive to make me. Our state legislature appropriates dollars to medical schools. They paid for the majority of my education. You can't just kick me to the curbside. I cost a lot of money. All right, so I get the best treatment. And I did. And I'm very grateful for it. Everybody else is not going to get that. Are we okay with them dying? Guys, I'm not okay with them dying. When we utilize medication, it's a 70% mortality benefit. 70%. I can't think of another drug that has a 70% mortality benefit. Can't think of it. Okay? And what it does is it allows us to hold people in treatment until the frontal lobes can wake up if we have the right treatment program. Some of them will need it lifelong. Sometimes the neurons in your brain change and they won't go back, and we've got to be able to accept that. Because I can show you patient after patient after patient of mine who have great lives and they're on medication. Okay? And I get people say, oh, they're doing great, I'm so happy, and then they find out they're on medication. Oh, I don't like that. Really? Why? It's because you think addiction is a moral failure, not a disease of the brain. Guys, I could make the argument that type 2 diabetes is a behavioral problem. And there's probably some type 2 diabetics in this room, just looking at the numbers. So what causes type 2 diabetes? Anybody know? Poor eating habits, lack of exercise, both behavioral things. As a doc, as an internist, what do I teach my patients? Diet and exercise. How many of them do it? Almost none. All right, I get a few every now and then. No, you get people who are motivated, absolutely. But the vast majority of them don't do it. And so they got to be put on medication. And so the problem with diabetes mellitus is not high blood sugar. The problem is blindness, kidney disease, heart disease, vascular disease, losing limbs, right? Having heart attacks, stroke. That's the problem. So we give them on medication, we lower their hemoglobin A1C, and we decrease their chances of all those bad outcomes. Everybody in the room is okay with that, right? I think they are. I don't think anybody's arguing against that. But if I get somebody their hemoglobin A1C is 8, which is terrible, and I put them on medication, it comes down to 6.5, and I lowered their risk of all that, we don't come up 2 years later and go, well, let's stop their medicine. They're dependent on it. We don't do that. But we do for addiction. And guys, addiction is no different than that. Defective opioid receptors, lower end of the behavioral scale from how you feel for people with opioid addiction. People with opioid addiction will tell you the first time they used, they got energy. They felt alive, they didn't go to sleep. And guys, it's the same systems in our brain, same receptors, they work the same way. Yet we'll get people on medication and they get out to 2 years and we suddenly determine that they don't need medication any longer and we stop them. All right, and keep in mind, in that 2 years, they've gotten their family back, they have a job, they have a driver's license, and they're doing really well. Yet we'll say, well, because I don't think you need to be on the medication, you need to come off of it. And I'm not telling you that everybody needs to be on it lifelong. They don't. We've got to put the environment out there that will help them come off of it. But for some people, having the medication gives them time for their frontal lobes to wake up, and we have to open our minds about it. And guys, I'm a pure abstinence-based guy. Never taken a drug in my recovery, right? I've been on Suboxone, methadone, Vivitrol, nothing. Okay, but I also had great treatment, great aftercare and follow-up, and most of the people in our community ain't gonna get it. And I had to become okay with not letting them die. So I get judges all the time that bring me in their courtroom and they go, oh, I've got all these people, they're abusing this and they're abusing that. And some of it's Suboxone and methadone. I go, yep, I know. It's going to be about 18%. That means that 82% aren't. And so for every one he has sitting in that room, I have 5 that are in the community living productive lives. And I'll tell you my favorite one. My favorite one is Josh. I only fire my patients for 2 reasons. One is throwing cigarette butts in my parking lot. I'll fire you for that. Now why? Because it's not hard to use an ashtray. It's hard to not use drugs, right? It's not hard to use an ashtray. So if you're not using an ashtray, you're just being willful, and I'm going to fire you. The other reason I'll fire you is not coming to your appointments on time. You can write it down and show up on time. That's what the rest of the world does. Okay, Monty and I were on time tonight. Right? That's what you do. So that's what I expect of my patients. I won't fire you if you come in and you got needles hanging out of your arms. I get docs that do that all the time. They'll catch somebody doctor shop. Oh, what'd you do? I fired them. That helps. You just send them to the street. You just drove the black market price of oxycodone and hydrocodone through the roof, and now there's a chance they'll get a hold of an adulterated pill that they think's oxycodone or hydrocodone, and it's fentanyl, and they'll die. We have to use it not as a gotcha, but as a way to get people in treatment. Guys, I mean, that's just the way it is. So I had this patient, Josh, who showed up in my office one day, and it was not his appointment time. And he came up to me, and he grabbed me and hugged me. I hug all my dudes. They're killer. And he said, Steve, he said, I know I'm not supposed to be here, but he said, I wanted to tell you this. He said, 2 years ago when I met you, I was stealing money out of my kids' piggy banks to buy drugs. And I looked in the car, and his wife was in there, and the kids were in the back seat, and they had on Mickey ears. And he said, this past Christmas, I got us all a trip to Disney World as our Christmas present, and we're going right now, and I pulled off the interstate. Thank you. Now that's what I'm addicted to. All right? That's good stuff, guys. And I saw Josh Saturday. He's still doing great. It's 5 years. He's on 1 pill a day. Josh has his own business. He started his own business with pressure washing and blacktop and driveways. And he's hired his brother and got his brother into recovery. Guys, it rolls on itself. Are you telling me that Josh is not in recovery? Really? I can't accept it. I absolutely can't accept it. And I had to get to that point. So, how long does it take the frontal lobe to fully come back? Anybody got a guess? 18 months to 2 years. I had a judge one time said, Dr. Lloyd, this patient of yours is still on medication 13 months after you put her on it. I said, thank God. Thank God. Thank God she's still on it. Thank God she's still coming back. Thank God she's still firm. That's a great thing. We got to watch how we interpret things. All right. So I want to go through this just really quick because here's what happens. I get people say all the time, well, it's not a disease because it's voluntary. Guys, when you first start taking it, it is voluntary. So when I took that first Lortab or that first Norco in front of Colonel Steve's liquor store, I got a positive response. And that blue area of my brain, that's the basal ganglion, and that's where it happened. That's part of my reward system. I took that pill and I had an elation. I had energy. My worries went away. That's a positive response. But over time, it took more and more to get the same effect. And over time, the red part of my brain, called the amygdala, which is the emotional center of our brain, my brain started to take over. And so instead of my drug use being driven by that positive feeling, because that positive feeling was going down and down the whole time, it took more and more drug to get less and less effect. Anybody who's ever been addicted will tell you that. Right? And over time, the negative feelings when I didn't have the drug were what was driving my drug use. Right? I was anxious, I was depressed, I was physically ill. And so it wasn't that I wanted to get high, it was that I wanted to not feel that way. And when that happens, the prefrontal cortex, this frontal lobe of your brain, is separated, and so you no longer have insight and judgment. How in the world could somebody take a pill that they knew there was a good chance it could kill them? Why could you do that? Because you don't have insight, frontal lobe involvement. So let me see, I'm going to see if y'all got this. So I was in the Rutherford County Jail back in February. And I had a room full of, this half of the room was all women, this half was men, and there was a great big wall right down the center. And I'm standing here so both of them could see me, but they can't see each other. And I'm flipping through my slides, and I'm going to show you the slide that I flipped through and got to here in just a second. But I'm flipping through my slides. I hardly ever look up there because I'm talking and I know what's up there. But all of a sudden, this half of the room was just in their chairs like this, crying, bawling their eyes out. And I thought, good God, what did I put up there? And I turned around, it was my picture of a drug-dependent baby. Why were those women crying? Because they all had drug-dependent babies. That's why they were crying. And the other women were patting them and consoling them. And I looked over on the guy's side of the room, and there were tears in the guy's room. This is long-term prison, right? These aren't people who are in there for the weekend. They've been in there for some of them for several years now. And they're tatted up in gauges and prison garb. I mean, scary. And now they're crying like little babies. And it just blew me away. And one of the women, when she got done crying, said, Dr. Lloyd, because my baby was born addicted, does that mean it will be an addict? And I got to give her the greatest answer in the world. The answer to that's no. It will be. It depends on what you do going forward. Guys, that's good stuff. So here's my question to you. At the end of the night, one of the guards come up to me and he had this smirk on his face and he said, well, they weren't crying like that when they were using drugs when they were pregnant. That's what he said. He didn't hear my talk. Everyone listen, why didn't they cry when they were pregnant? Why? No frontal lobe, no insight, no judgment. People who've used in this room know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't have insight and judgment, you don't see those things. You don't see the consequences. If you did, nobody ever get behind the wheel of a car drunk. That's exactly what happens. We have to understand that. Absolutely have to understand that. Right. So here's the problem that we're dealing with. Our state legislature, our General Assembly, and our government for the past 5, 6, 7 years have done some really, really good things. We've driven doctor shopping down by over 50%. We've decreased the number of pills prescribed in the state unbelievably. The one thing we haven't done is we haven't increased access to treatment. And guys, you can cut the pills down all you want. But if you don't treat the people with addictive disease, they'll simply turn to the black market. And guys, the black market now is more dangerous than it's ever been because we have things like heroin that's laced with fentanyl. We have pills that look just like the pills that people take, only they're not oxycodone or hydrocodone, they're fentanyl. And it's 100 to 1,000 times stronger than what they think they're taking. These are the therapeutic index versus the death dose. And I want you to look at heroin, 6 to 1. Marijuana is infinite. Nobody ever died of an overdose of marijuana. Now, I'm not up here advocating legalizing marijuana. I'm just saying nobody died of an overdose of it. Okay? If you look at LSD, 1,000 to 1. Look at heroin, 6 to 1. Very narrow window between getting high and dying. And this is what we're faced with in Tennessee right now. So if you look at mental health treatment in the 1930s, this is Pelican State Hospital in New York. The stigma associated with it was unbelievable. My grandmother told me when I was a little boy I needed to be put in a straitjacket. I never knew what that was. I think those are straitjackets. I'm pretty sure they are. Look at it. One guy's just put his head down and given up. And I love the guy in the back. You can't see his face. Look at the despair. That's how we treated mental health. We don't do that today. In our state, we have people that were determined that they needed to be in a long-term psychiatric hospital the rest of their life. They're actually living in the community because of what our state government has done by putting them in the community. They actually have jobs. They actually are able to live independently because we pigeonhole them like this with stigma. We did the same thing. I've already told you about HIV disease in the 80s and 90s. This picture is credited with changing the face of HIV disease and AIDS in the United States. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but this guy's name is David Kirby. He's the guy on the bed dying. He died a few hours after this picture was made. He was born in central Ohio, moved to the West Coast, contracted the HIV virus, came home and died. That's his dad hugging him there. Now I want to ask you this. Does his dad look like he cares how his son got HIV disease and AIDS? He looks like a dad that's losing a son to me. Right? And this picture is credited with changing the face of HIV disease and AIDS in the United States. I want to know what the picture that changes the face of addiction is. What's it? What does it look like? I think it's this one. I think it's this one. I'd like to think jails. But the truth is a lot of people think that we need to build more jails and lock people up longer, although it's incredibly ineffective and unbelievably expensive. I think it's this one. I think people care about drug-dependent babies. And you all live in East Tennessee. You have the worst NAS problem in the state. Right here where you are. Warren County, Knox County, Anderson County. You all are the worst. And these babies are born every single day. I think people care about this. I think they care a lot. And guys, there's a way to affect it. I want to tell you just quickly about my first pregnant lady. So that's my last slide. I want to tell you about my first pregnant lady. She came to see me in November of the year. And it's cold. I live in Upper East Tennessee in Johnson City, so it's cold in November. And she had on a little spaghetti strap dress, didn't have a coat on over it. And first thing when I got her in the office, she sat down there. I knew she was pregnant. I flipped her chart open, and over here was her birthday. She's 2 weeks older than my son. My son was a junior at Science Hill at the time, and he couldn't find his dadgum car keys, and she's pregnant. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what am I into here? So I just started, and I took her history, and she had these little round things all over her upper arms and back, cigarette burns, right? And so as I took her history, it turned out that she was a victim of incest in her own family by her dad. He started raping her when she was 4 years old. And he raped her pretty consistently with her mom in the house. And so when she was 7, I thought this was a genius for a 7-year-old, she asked for a Yorkie puppy for her birthday. And so her mindset was that the Yorkie puppy would bark when Dad came in the room at night, wake Mom up, and would keep Dad off of her. All right? And it actually worked. All right? It actually worked. Until she turned 10 and Mom got arrested. Anybody care to guess what Mom was arrested for? Right. This is a generation that runs a family. She was arrested for substance use disorder and dealing. And so Mom gets taken away, Dad gets full custody. He raped her basically every night until she was 13 years old and she ran away from home. That's the day that I stopped throwing rocks. I'm not condoning the behavior at all. But guys, 75% of the women that I work with have been physically, sexually, or emotionally abused, and I'm telling you that's crap. It's 99.999, because I haven't found one yet that's not. I want to understand them, meet them where they are, and stop judging them, bring them into treatment. We've done things in Tennessee that's actually prevented that at times. We had a law a few years ago that said, you know, it didn't say this, but it's how it was interpreted, that women interpreted it if they were pregnant and drug dependent, that they take their babies and put them in jail. That's not what it said, but that's how it was interpreted. And I stopped getting women at 10 and 12 weeks of pregnancy and started getting them at 37, 38 weeks. And sometimes I didn't get them until the NICU doc called me and told me to come to the hospital and see them after the delivery. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to make it an avenue and use it as leverage to keep them in treatment. There's a way to do that. And I think that we seriously have to take a look at it. And I tell you that story because that changed my entire mindset of how I dealt with these young women. And I tell you, they're phenomenal. They're the most motivated patients that I've ever seen. And they give me hope every single day that I go in there and I have the pleasure of working with them. Now, I want to ask you this. If I treat them all the way through their pregnancy and they give birth and they relapse and I never see them again, did we do the right thing? We did. We did the right thing. Relapse is a part of it. We've got to have better support systems for them going forward. And I think that as long as we don't do that, then we're going to continue to reap what we're sowing right now. So let me get to my closing here. I'm going to be like Monty, although I'm not near the preacher Monty is. What's the church's involvement? Y'all ever heard of Rat Park? Anybody ever heard of Rat Park? Rat Park is really cool, so I'll explain it really quick. So basically, you took a rat, put him in a cage with morphine and water, and the rat will preferentially drink the morphine and water until it dies. Even when it's got fresh water right there, it'll drink it until it dies. And people threw their hands up and went, "Oh my gosh, look how powerful these drugs are. He'd rather die than have fresh water." And then some smarter people came along and said the rat didn't have very many options. Right? They said, morphine and water or water. What if we put some sawdust in there? Rats like to dig holes in sawdust, and put some of those cans, rat can run through the can, or those little wheels. Rats love to run around on the little wheels. Put some of those in there, and still put the morphine and water in the water. And most importantly, let's chunk a female rat in there, and let's see what happens. Those same drug-addicted rats no longer preferred the morphine and water, they preferred the water and all this other stuff. That's Rat Park. So that's rats. We're humans. The United States had its own rat park. It's called the Vietnam War. So we had thousands of soldiers in Southeast Asia getting shot at. Most of them were because they didn't believe in it. And the heroin use rates over there were through the roof. Congressmen would go over during Vietnam and come back and go, "Oh, we're going to have a heroin epidemic when these guys get back. We've got to have treatment centers." It didn't materialize. Why? We changed the rat park. They went from over there and said they didn't believe in it, get shot at and possibly die every day, came back to the U.S., they had their friends, their families, they got into their support system, and they went back to work. This is where the faith-based community comes in. We've got to help people change their rat park, guys. We've got to stop shying away. I've got places that says, "Oh yeah, we'll help pregnant women, we'll do this, we'll do that," or they're on medication while they're pregnant. No, they can't come here. Really? Really? I mean, are we doing that? Because their alternative is the street. Or their alternative is going back into the households that they're in. And if you're scared, call me, I'll go. I promise you it's the right thing to do, and I promise you that they will do it. We have to change our mindset here. And what the faith-based community does, what my friend Monty Burks does, is going across the state of Tennessee, getting our faith, people of faith, to realize the role that you can play. Because I had a guy in Greene County, I went to a place that they were wanting to open up a treatment center, and I came in to advocate for them. And the people there in that little community in Greene County wouldn't let me in the meeting at first because I wasn't from there. But at the very end, they let me in. And I told them what I thought. And one guy told me, he said, Jesus Christ would not try to help alcoholics from behind the bar. I disagree. I think if Jesus roamed the earth today, these are the people he would be. These are the people that are hurting most in our society. Tax collectors have moved up the chain. All right? I don't know why, but they have. Right? These are the people that Jesus would be. I'm convinced of it. And guys, we have to reach out as a faith community and bring them in instead of excluding them, instead of laying titles on them. And I promise you, it'll be the most fun you ever had, because when you watch them make it, and it's also heartbreaking, because I've lost multiple patients to overdoses, I've lost multiple patients to suicide. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But the outcomes of the ones that make it are so great. So I'm willing to step into it, and I hope you will be too. That's my last slide. Here's my contact information. And I think we have about 10 minutes for questions. Guys, thanks for having me. Yes, sir, in the back. right?
medical marijuana. And also, if anybody look at the bill that's been the House Bill 1460, that has been pre-filed by the state legislature, and we created somebody high school that would help people in that way continue their education.
Sure, thank you. And so I'll address those in reverse order. First of all, with recovery hospitals, they're really, really good things. And I haven't seen Representative Smith's bill, so I can't comment on it. But I can tell you that I've been to recovery high school, and it's really amazing. You're basically taking kids and putting them in a recovery-oriented environment throughout their school day. And it's a really, really good thing, and I'd have to see the specifics of the bill to tell you how I felt about it. But I definitely support that concept, because again, you all know what Rat Park is now. And now we're trying to help kids change their Rat Park, and I think that's a good thing. As far as medical marijuana is concerned, first of all, I'm not an expert on it, and I'm not a legislator, and we have somebody in our department who does that. His name is Kurt Hippel, and so you can be sure and reach out to Kurt to get the department stance on it. But I can tell you this, is that people in general, the opposite of addiction is not recovery. The opposite of addiction is relationship, guys. It just is. With God, your heart, and your fellow human being. It's pretty simple. And I think that, even with the things that I talked about, because I advocated for medication-assisted therapy tonight, and I did it because it saves lives. But if I could really advocate for something, I would advocate for a relationship. Because people on medication, it's like me. When I go on vacation now, if I was on medication, if I was on methadone, I'd have to worry about where I went, because I'd have to have a methadone clinic there so I could go every day. And I worry about being dope sick and what if I can't get there and all that. And that's charitable. I'm not saying you can't be done, but it'd be a burden. So I want people to be able to live, drug free that can. But it's a good thing in the right context. The real deal here is relationship with other human beings and changing your playgrounds and playmates. So I don't know what role medical marijuana plays, and I'm not an expert. So you'll have to ask somebody else. It's just not my deal. But I do know that we're not going to write a prescription for a pill that's going to cure this. And we're not going to write a prescription for marijuana that's going to cure it. It's not going to happen, guys. If it was, then we'd do it. If you rubbing chicken crap across your upper lip did it, I'd open up a clinic, and that's what we do. It doesn't. What does it is relationship. What does it is involvement with our faith community, bringing people in, giving them different alternatives. I think those will be areas. And then prevention in the first place. Anybody else? Big crowd like this and no other question?
Right here.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so I don't understand so the doctors. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is funny. So, I know they've got Dr. Patel. Any other doctors besides me and Dr. Patel in the room? Huh? Oh, repeat her question? Okay. The question is what about educating the doctors? Right? Because we have women of childbearing age who are getting these medications, who are at risk of having drug-dependent babies and don't know it. You have women who are already pregnant and addicted, and their doctors are giving them basically a mixed message. And I'm going to get into that just a little bit. But I want to ask you, so I'm going to answer the question this way. Is there any other doctor besides the two of us? So how much education would you think that we got in medical school and residency on the proper prescribing and controlled substances for both acute and chronic pain? Anybody got a guess? 0 hours. Is that right, Dr. Patel? 0 hours, right? How many hours did we get on the recognition of and referral to treatment of people with substance use disorder? An equally comparable 0 hours. Veterinarians have 75 hours in their former curriculum on the treatment of pain in animals. Yet when you talk to medical schools across the state, we don't have room for it in our curriculum. We had an hour on maple syrup urine disease. You know what that is? Anybody know? You remember? It's where baby's pee smells like maple syrup. First of all, I don't know who figured that out. All right. And second of all, I'm not saying it's not a problem, but compared to what we're dealing with, it's minuscule. Look at the response we had to Ebola. Remember Ebola? You know how many people in the United States died of Ebola? One, the guy down in Texas. That same time period, we lost 7 Americans from flat screen TVs falling off the wall and killing them while they're trying to hang their flat screen TV. I mean, it's just the truth. Yet look at the response that we've had to this. Our doctors are not educated. Matter of fact, I didn't tell you guys this tonight, I'm sorry. I usually tell all my audiences this. When you leave here tonight, you know more about addiction as a disease than 95% of the doctors in your community. I promise you that. I promise you. And our approach to drug-dependent pregnant women is to put them on medication, either Subutex or methadone, leave them on it all the way through their pregnancy, and so they don't relapse, and their babies aren't born premature or their babies die at birth. That's why we do that. Okay? But we have evidence from one of our doctors right here at UT, Craig Towers, that if we provide the right environment for these women, with the right wraparound services, that we can actually detox them during pregnancy and have low relapse rates, and babies are not born prematurely and they're not born drug dependent. But the medical community in general looks at it and says, well, that's not the standard of care, so you can't do that. So there's a lot of things working against us. So the truth of the matter is, we absolutely have to educate our docs, and it's part of my job. It's what I do Monty will tell you, it's what I do every single day. You now have 2 hours, that our state legislature passed this a few years ago, that you have to have 2 hours on prescribing controlled substances every time your license is renewed. And I do that along with the Department of Health. And we do these things everywhere. I've been in rooms full of doctors. Doctors will tell you, if everybody in the room is a doctor, and I said, how many of you feel comfortable that you can identify patients who are coming to you for narcotics, who are really using them for addiction and not chronic pain? Most of the doctors in the room are going to raise their hand and go, yeah, I feel comfortable with that. They trust their gut. Their gut stinks. It's terrible. Mine still stinks. You know what I trust? The controlled substance monitoring data bank is what I trust. Objective data that shows me the patients that are going to pharmacies, how many doctors, how many pharmacies they're going to. But again, here's how we use that. Oh, I've got a lady here's going to 14 doctors, 10 pharmacies. She's doctor shopping. She got a prescription from me. I'm kicking her out of my practice. It's not a gotcha. That's somebody who has addictive disease. It would be like getting back a blood test and somebody's hemoglobin A1C being high and you kicking them out for eating too much chocolate cake. It's the same thing. I don't kick those patients out. I don't condone the behavior, and if they're dealing, that's a matter of the law, that's separate. But if it's using, then I want to try to get them in help, get them treated. That's 90%. I tell you this about doctors and airline pilots, right? The 2 most successful groups of treatment in the United States, doctors and airline pilots, 90%. It's very true. So we've got to change our approach to that. We absolutely are educating our doctors right now, but the key is going to be when we get into medical schools and residencies. That's the key. Right? We've got to be able to get to the next generation of docs, and if the schools won't do it, then they need a little help. Right. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. What do you mean practical application? Money is, you can get close to me, Ronnie. Talk to me.
Hi, Stephen.
You'll violate my personal space. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yes.
Oh, I got this. I feel like Britney Spears.
We look like an R&B pop group. I still got mine.
Okay.
Yes, we feel like a pop group on the stage. Christian pop group. Really quick, who asked the question? What we would like to do is connect with you. Jason Goodman just had to leave. We have representatives in your area that can help you with toolkits that will be kin to whatever your congregation is willing to do. So don't necessarily step outside of what your congregation is comfortable with. Find something that's conducive to what your congregation believes, and then partner with one of our local agencies and see how you can be effective together. And what I mean, an example of that is we have a recovery court here, and we have Prevention Coalition in the surrounding area. They need more congregations to provide certain types of meetings for people that come to them so they can have a resource. That may be just a congregation that comes and volunteers when they have informational meetings. It could be someone need to host, a congregation needed to host a Celebrate Recovery or an AA or an NA group. I can't speak for AA and NA, but I work with Celebrate Recovery very close. Celebrate Recovery is always looking for more congregations to be a bridge of access to get people into their programs. If you guys are ready and willing to work, I can connect you with the resources to be able to build whatever that ministry may be. And if you have an idea of what you'd like to do, everything is not evidence-based when it comes to recovery support. Sometimes it's practice-based. And practice-based may mean literally, sometimes people that come out of recovery programs, they need deodorant. They need somebody to show them where they can go and take a shower. And it could be something as simple as partnering with one of the local agencies or communities. And I hope that answers your question. And I have one more thing to say really quick. How many peer recovery specialists do we have here? The peer recovery specialist program are people who have long-term recovery experience or in long-term recovery. Each one of them had to go through a week certification where they have to be 2 years either in recovery from substance abuse or a mental health diagnosis. What they can do is partner with you as a resource to get a better understanding of the language that surrounds addiction, because sometimes well-intended efforts can sometimes be stifled by miscommunication. An example will be, I deal with congregations across the state, and I went into an area and the pastor was a wonderful guy. He's one of my good friends now, and he's bigger than me, and he's got big muscles. He might see this right now. I don't want to get beat up. But what he said was, how do I help all the addicts? Right then, nobody was going to come to him for help. Right then, he cut it off right there. So we learned to say, hey, how can I help the people that are in recovery or that are seeking recovery? You see how much weight I just took off of that one word? So I'd like to connect with you after. And every peer recovery specialist that's here, please connect with me when you leave and give me your contact information, because you can get a contact hour for listening to Dr. Lloyd talk about the brain's cognitive function.
I'll take one more. It's a little bit before 7. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Right? All right, good. Horrible. Right. Well, that's an easy question. First of all, let's go back. The goals in pregnancy is number 1, have a live baby, and number 2, to keep mom from sticking needles in her arm while she's pregnant and contracting Hep C or HIV. 3, to keep mom out of environments where she can get in trouble and run into trouble with the legal system. So you kind of have to look at what the goals are. 60% of all babies that are born to pregnant moms who are using opioids will be born drug dependent regardless of the dose. And I get this all the time. Well, they were on this dose. You didn't try to trade them down. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So right now, the standard of care for pregnant women, literally for 30 years, 40 years, has been to put them on methadone, get them to where they're not having withdrawals, not having cravings, keep them on that same dose all the way through pregnancy, and then treat the drug-dependent baby. That's been the standard of care, and I promise you it's the standard of care right now. So if I've got law enforcement in the room, and you have a jail, and you have a pregnant lady in there, and you get her, and you say you're not getting your medication, you're going to get sued at some point when somebody's family has enough money. I promise you, and you will lose. You're going to lose, because I can fill this room with medical studies that are going to show you that that's the best treatment. And you get a bad outcome doing that, you will lose, and it'll be painful. It will happen. Now, what we do know is that all of the medical science of the past 40 years that we based that thing on were based on 2 cases. 2. One in 1973 of a guy who was detoxing a woman off of heroin and she had a stillbirth. That's one. The second was in 1975. They were detoxing a woman off of heroin and checking serial amniocentesis levels of norepinephrine. And the epinephrine level was rising, and the doc says, the baby's under stress, we're not going to do that. 2 cases. Craig Towers at the University of Tennessee here, he's naturally a Yankee, but he came down to Knoxville about 15 years ago and he started running into all these drug-dependent babies, and the mom would come to him and say, can't you get me off before I give birth? And he said, no. The standard of care is this. This is exactly what happened to your friend. The standard of care is this. Guys, pregnant women are motivated. Okay, they're motivated. Maybe for some of them, first time when they feel a baby kick, it's the first time they know there's something bigger than them in the world. And they're unbelievably motivated. So Craig said, no, I can't do that. And one day he had some time in his office, so we went and looked up the literature and found there was only 2 cases. And so we went and he looked at 301 women here in the East Tennessee area that had been detoxed. He didn't do it. They've been forcibly detoxed in jails or other places, which I don't advocate for at all. It's completely wrong. Okay, but he looked at them and said, did they have premature births, and did they have babies that were born dead? And the answer was no, they didn't. So if those are the 2 outcomes you're looking at, they're not true. Those were 2 cases compared to this big number. Now, the big problem is relapse. You know about that, right? So you take them down, you cut them off, and then they relapse. What he found was if you give them the right support services and wraparound services with the counseling, the case management, the rides to the doctor, less than 20% of them relapsed. Less than 20%, guys, that's 80% of them that don't. And none of them give birth to drug-dependent babies. And so what does that matter from a state standpoint? We just say you don't give a crap about drug-dependent babies, don't care a bit, but you care about your tax dollars. Okay, everybody cares about their tax dollars. Every drug-dependent baby in the state of Tennessee costs 10 care $61,000. 61 grand. A normal baby costs 7 grand. That's $54,000 in treatment times 1,200 drug-dependent babies we had born last year. So if you don't even care about babies, you care about tax dollars, there you go. So what we're looking at doing right now is looking at building programs that give the woman the option. Nothing is forced, but give the woman the option to taper to lowest effective dose or taper to abstinence during her pregnancy. And right now, Craig's doing that right here at UT. We're doing it at Buffalo Valley down in Middle Tennessee. And guys, we're not having drug-dependent babies that are born. We had a program in Sevier County and Jefferson County where we went into the jails and we educated women on voluntary reversible long-acting contraception. Voluntary reversible long-acting contraception. Sevier County, which is one of the worst counties in the state with NAS, dropped their NAS rate by 50% in 1 year. Okay? We know strategies that will work, but we have to be willing to open up the floodgates and let us do it. All right, guys, it's 7 o'clock. Everybody's reward system's cranking out. You're having cravings. Remember that it's 10 times harder for somebody to stop using opioids than it is for you to stop eating. Thank you, guys.
Excuse me, everyone. I've been asked to give the benediction tonight to pray us out. And my name is Jeremy Graham, and I'm with True Purpose Ministries, and we're, of course, located here in Blount County. And I just want to appreciate everybody for just a wonderful turnout. I would like to do something just really quick. I know I'm behind a pulpit. I'm not going to be preaching tonight. But I would like to do something really quick as we close. Could we have all of our elected officials, our police officers, our county employees, people like that, can we have you all stand, please, if you're in the room? Wow. Can we give them a hand of applause? This shows here, everyone in Blount County, that we have elected officials and people that really care about the epidemic that is going on here in the county and in the state of Tennessee. I can't tell you how many times Mayor Ed Mitchell has helped out us at True Purpose Ministries. It is just amazing to see the elected officials who absolutely care for the well-being of the people here in this county. And so we just appreciate all of the elected officials who's here tonight. One more thing, if you work in recovery, work in the trenches, if you're in any kind of prevention, work with treatment, anything, can you please stand? And I want to thank you personally, too, for coming out tonight. You are the ones who actually make all this possible to be able to minister to these people that are hurting. So let's pray. Father God, we just love you so much, Lord. And Father God, we thank you for everyone that is in this room. We thank you for the elected officials. We thank you for the people, Lord, who are making the decisions. We thank you, Lord Jesus, for this wonderful county, Lord. And Father God, we start off by praying for all of our elected officials, our police officers, and everyone who is in the county government and the state government. And Father God, we pray for their protection. We pray for wisdom, Lord Jesus, and guidance, Father. And we pray, Lord Jesus, for everyone else who stood up, Lord, who is involved in recovery, and everybody else who came tonight. Father God, we thank you so much, Lord, for everyone here that is locking arms, Lord, and that is desiring to see a change in the state of Tennessee. And Father God, we know, Lord Jesus, that together, Lord, we can make a difference and we can bring this epidemic down. In Jesus' name, we just give you honor and we just give you praise right now. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, everyone.